goody, Shellitronnn here. You can call me Shells, and I'm back again with a brand new video, and I'm gonna keep it a Bowberry biscuit. I just heard some news that should get every single Panthers fan extremely excited. And I mean extremely excited because, you know what? Let's go ahead and throw the tweet right now from Jeremy Fowler. He says Carolina Panthers are expected to hire Sean Ryan as quarterback's coach per source. Last with Detroit, Ryan has been with QB's coach for Matt Stafford and Deshaun Watson the last few years. Reunites with Matt Rhule as the two were in New York together with the Giants. Now, if you don't know who Sean Ryan is, you should if you've watched this channel for a while now. I won't lie to you for a minute there. For a minute when I saw this tweet, I was like, hold on. Who is Sean Ryan? That name sounds real familiar to me, but I couldn't quite place it. Then I remembered. I put up this video almost a year ago when we first signed Matt Rhule. Just about every single report coming out was saying that Sean Ryan was going to be Rev Rhule's offensive coordinator. And I got so convinced from all those reports that I put out that video saying it had already happened. Because literally everyone was saying Sean Ryan was going to be the guy in Carolina. As y'all obviously know, it's Joe Brady. Joe Brady has been getting interviews to be a head coach in several different locations. Now, it's very, very unlikely he gets a spot anymore. A lot of those roles are getting filled up. A lot of guys are getting hired. But as we know, there are coaches getting fired every single year in the NFL. So we'll be going through this same thing again next year. And if this offense even looks even halfway decent, I'm pretty damn sure that Joe Brady will get his opportunity to be a head coach somewhere else next season. And that's where Sean Ryan comes in. Sean Ryan coming in as the quarterback coach in a year where we might end up drafting our quarterback or perhaps even trading for Deshaun Watson or Matt Stafford. I'll go over those here really quickly in a second. But this man, Sean Ryan, has played a very pivotal role in the development of numerous young players. That's what he's known for. That's exactly what Sean Ryan is known for. Being in a young player's life, being part of the development, and they become very, very good players down the road. Did it with OBJ as a receivers coach with the Giants. Eli Manning, I mean, look, I'll say it like this. This man, Sean Ryan, was there for both of the Giants' Super Bowl wins. And then he went to the Texans, where he was a huge part in how Deshaun Watson developed into becoming the quarterback he is right now. He was on the Texans staffs from 2016 to 2018. And then in 2019, he went to the Lions, where he was the quarterback coach for Matt Stafford. And in 2019, Matt Stafford did get hurt. He only played in 8 games. But in those 8 games, Matt Stafford threw for 2,499 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. In only half a season, Matt Stafford outperformed a full season from Teddy Bridgewater. He was in the MVP conversation in the first half of the year. Then he got hurt. But in 2019, people forget this because it's the Lions and it's Matt Stafford. But Matt Stafford looked great in 2019. And also, Matt Stafford has been a pretty top-tier quarterback over the past several years. I think he's always been a top 10 quarterback, usually around 8, 9, 10, but he has never been one of the worst quarterbacks or even an average or mediocre quarterback. I think the Lions being in the NFC North, being the Lions, it's a team that doesn't really take care of their star players at any point in their history. So Matt Stafford a lot of times is guilty by association from the colors he wears, from the logo on the side of the helmet, you feel me? But I don't find it to be a coincidence that in the same year Sean Ryan gets there, Matt Stafford has one of his best starts to a season in his whole career. 2,500 yards in 8 games, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. That's pretty damn good to me. I won't lie to you. But we can't talk about Sean Ryan without talking about his 2 connections to 2 guys who could be on the trade block this year. The guys we've already spoken on, Deshaun Watson and Matt Stafford. We've all heard the talk about Deshaun Watson possibly, maybe even very likely coming to the Panthers. There's different sites giving different odds. I think on actionnetwork.com, they have the Panthers as plus 2,000, meaning if you bet $100, you can win 2,000. This not that great of odds, but pretty decent. I saw on National Football Post, the Panthers have a 12-1 odds. I think there was some betting. I think it's betonline.ag had us at plus 600, meaning we had the best odds in the entire NFL to get Deshaun Watson this offseason. If you bet $100. You can get $600. The next closest was the Dolphins at $650. It's not all that impossible for this team to get Deshaun Watson if you include some key players, guys like maybe DJ Moore. DJ Moore might have to be on the table for these guys to get traded. Jeremy Chin might be on the books. Maybe even Brian Burns. If you pair one of those guys with 2 firsts and a second, maybe even a 4th, and they give you a 3rd back, then that could probably be what gets Deshaun Watson to Carolina. The only question then is, was it really worth it? Because now we have no O-line, no way to pay our O-line, and you just got rid of at least one very pivotal, high-impact player on one side of the ball or the other. 2 of those dudes are going to be very good players for the very, very foreseeable future. One guy had a very solid year this year, a huge step up in consistency, but he did stay hurt. That toe was hurting, boy. Dante Jackson's toe was hurting, but he may be able to be kind of worth maybe looking at some point. I would look at Shaq Thompson, honestly, being part of the deal with Deshaun Watson. But when it comes to Matt Stafford, the narrative around him is a much lower tier narrative that you can probably get him for a lot less. I think maybe a 1st and a swap between our 4th and their 3rd could probably bring in this man, Matt Stafford. But it would take a whole lot less to get Matt Stafford, which is good in 2 different ways. One, you don't have to guess on any of these guys in the draft. Look, whether you love Trey Lance or Mac Jones or BYU shoulder boy, those guys are still risks. No matter how they played in college, you do not know how their skill set is going to end up in the NFL. But with Matt Stafford, you have already seen him in the NFL. You've seen what he can do. He is not a bad quarterback. Matt Stafford is a proven commodity where you really cannot bust. And you still have extra picks so you can surround him with an O-line, and you have C-Mac still back there as well. You're probably going to lose Kurtko, but if you're able to keep that 2nd round pick, maybe you can use that 2nd round pick on a receiver. There are a couple guys, one dude from Houston, another guy from The Ohio State, who are going to be very solid 2nd round receivers. Maybe you want to make sure we have all of our weapons in place, and maybe you want to look at O-lineman and free agency. Picking up Matt Stafford would not be the worst choice in the world. Every single year, fan bases and GMs always believe they find their guy, and then it turns out it ain't work all that well for any number of reasons. I've seen with my own eyes what Matt Stafford can do. I believe in Matt Stafford. I actually like Matt Stafford. But that's not the only reason why this Sean Ryan pickup makes sense. Because, outside of him being a good candidate to be the OC once Joe Brady eventually leaves, probably next year, his connection between Deshaun Watson and Matt Stafford, it's also his experience with being a guy who can mold good players young and turn them into elite talent later on down the road. So if you do decide to draft a quarterback, you don't make any trades for Deshaun Watson or Matt Stafford, this is a guy who's proven he can turn maybe a little bit some raw talent into something that can become great if put in the right system and if molded in the right way. This pickup right here is one of the sleeper best pickups because it's not just for a quarterback coach position. He's probably going to be our OC coming up very, very soon. Sean Ryan was already connected to Matt Rhule last year, so it comes as no surprise with saying, hey, look, bro, come be our QB coach. You already know Joe Brady's out the back door next year. You're going to be the OC, and then you might get a job as a head coach somewhere down the line as well, my brother. I think Matt Rhule and Sean Ryan can work wonders, and it gives us options. Options and connections, which is how the world works. You need options, you need connections, and the money's there. The money's up top with Dave. Dave got the money. Money, options, connections. Those 3 things make the world go round. That's how I feel about it, man. What are your thoughts on Sean Ryan, Joe Brady, Deshaun Watson, Matt Stafford, drafting a quarterback, trading for a quarterback, what the team should do? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. And you already know what to do with that like button.
Cheers to you, appreciate the chance. Been told y'all I been the man. Been told y'all I had the gift. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Real ones gonna recommend. Count this as another win.